Hey, Shalom YouTube. This is Brother Richard, Ozarks Altruistic, and I'm coming to you with the second part of the Torah portion, or the Torah part of the Torah portion. We're going to be reading out of Exodus. We're going to go from Exodus 32, or Shemoth 32, to Exodus, or Shemoth 34, verse 35. So let's start with verse 1 in Exodus chapter 32. And when the people saw that Moshe was long in coming down from the mountain, the people gathered together to Aharon and said to him, Arise and make us mighty ones who go before us, for this Moshe, the man who brought us up out of the land of Mitzrayim, we do not know what has become of him. Not very patient people, are they? Not very patient people, are we? And Aharon said to them, Take off the golden earrings, which are in the ears of your wives, your sons, your daughters, and bring them to me. And all the people took off their golden earrings, which were in their ears, and brought them to Aharon. And he took this from their hand, and he formed it with an engraving tool, and made a molded calf. And they said, This is your mighty one, O Yisrael, that brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim. Not too smart. And Aharon saw and built a slaughter place before it. And Aharon called out and said, Tomorrow is a festival to YaHuWaH. Okay, question mark here. Just because you say something is a holiday or a holy day to YaHuWaH does not mean that it is. If it's not written in the scripture, and you're not worshiping the only Elohim, the only mighty one of Yisrael, of the whole, all creation, then you are wasting your time, okay? So all of these fake days that people come up with in their false doctrine, that right there is something that this is a good example of what you're not supposed to be doing, okay? So if it's in the scriptures, then do it. If it's not in the scriptures, then do not do it. Pure and simple, okay? And Aharon saw and built the slaughter place before it. And Aharon called out and said, Tomorrow is a festival to YaHuWaH. No, it's not. And they rose early the next day and offered ascending offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Sounds like the grasshopper and the ant to me. Look that one up. And YaHuWaH said to Moshe, Go, get down. For your people whom you brought out of the land of Mitzrayim have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They have made themselves a molded calf and have bowed themselves to it and slaughtered to it and said, This is the mighty one, O Yisrael, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, or Egypt, or slavery, or bondage, or sin. Okay? And YaHuWaH said to Moshe, I have seen this people, and see, it is a stiff-necked people. And now let me alone, that my wrath might burn against them, and I consume them, and I make of you a great nation. But Moshe pleaded with YaHuWaH. He interceded atop of Mashiach, atop of Messiah, back then. But Moshe pleaded with YaHuWaH, his Elohim, and said, YaHuWaH, why does your wrath burn against your people, whom you have brought out of the land of Mitzrayim with great power and with a strong hand? Why should the Mitzrites or the Egyptians speak and say, For evil he brought them out to kill them in the mountains and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from the heat of your wrath and relent from this evil to your people. Remember Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yisrael, or Jacob, Yaakov, your servants, to whom you swore by yourself and said to them, I increase your seed like the stars of the heavens, and all this land that I have spoken of I give to your seed, and they shall inherit it forever. And YaHuWaH relented from the evil which he would do to his people, which he said he would do to his people. And Moshe turned and went down from the mountain, and in his hands were the 2 tablets of the witness, tablets written on both their sides, written on the one and on the other. And the tablets were the work of Elohim, and the writing was the writing of Elohim. engraved on these tablets, which is a big deal to me. And YaHuWaH, son of Nun, a type of Messiah, later on you'll see, and also the actual Messiah's name. And YaHuWaH heard the name of the people as they shouted, and he said to Moshe, a noise of battle in the camp. And he said, it's not the sound of those who shout of might, nor is it the sound of those who cry out in weakness, but the sound of singing that I hear. And it came to be, as soon as he came near the camp, that he saw the calf and the dancing. And Moshe's displeasure burned, and he threw the tablets out of his hands and broke them at the foot of the mountain. The Torah had been broken. And he took the calf which they had made and burned it in the fire and ground it into powder and scattered it on the face of the water and made the children of Israel drink it. Wormwood? Kind of. And Moshe said to Aaron, what did this people do to you that you have brought so great a sin upon them? And Aaron said, do not let the displeasure of my master burn. You know the people, that it is an evil. And they said to me, make us mighty ones who go before us. For this Moshe, the man who brought us out of the land of Mitzrayim, we do not know what has become of him. And I said to them, whoever has gold, let them take it off. And they gave it to me. And I threw it into the fire, and this calf came out. Just came out. And Moshe saw, and that's not what it said earlier though, right? And Moshe saw that the people were let loose. For Aaron had let them loose to their own lasciviousness, to their shame among their enemies. And Moshe stood in the entrance of the camp and said, who is for YaHuWaH? Come to me. I would run so fast, right to his side. And all the sons of Levi gathered themselves to him. This is the one verse in the scriptures, one of many. This is my favorite verse in the scripture. I'll say it again. Who is for YaHuWaH? Come with me, or come to me. And he said to them, thus said YaHuWaH, Elohim of Yisrael, each one put his sword on his side. It's about to get ugly. Pass over to and fro from gate to gate in the camp, and each one kill his brother, each one kill his friend, and each one his relative. And the sons of Levi did according to the word of Moshe, and about 3,000 men of the people that day fell. And Moshe said, you are ordained for YaHuWaH today, since each one of you has been against his son, against his brother, so as to bring upon you a blessing today. So, one of the things that happens whenever you decide to keep the scriptures and completely trust in what the Father says, then the truth starts to rub up against the lies that other people believe and have been taught all their life. Heck, for that matter, the truth, whenever you're reading it, whenever you're starting to understand these things, and even as we go along, even right now in my life, this truth rubs up against lies that I have that were either preconceived or put in there based on conversations from other people. So, what happens with that is it causes difficulty. It causes problems with perhaps your brother, perhaps your father, at least your earthly father, not your heavenly father, which is the most important one. Maybe your wife. There could be some negativity with that. If she doesn't want to come along, or he doesn't want to come along. Your sons, you could be separated from your entire family, but as long as you're attached to YaHuWaH, whoever's with YaHuWaH, come to me, at the side of Moshe. And Moshe is representative of the Torah itself, because he wrote the written Torah. He was inspired to do it by the Father. So when it talks about Moshe and the prophets, it's talking about the Torah. Okay? So whenever you decide to take that avenue in life, which is the correct one, which is the narrow pathway, you're going to have a lot of things come against you. Okay? And so this is kind of like that right there, because these people would rather worship a freaking a golden calf that was melted out of their earrings and jewelry and stuff, than keep faithful to the Father. And they were right there at the foot of the mountain, for crying out loud. And Moshe said, you are ordained to YaHuWaH today, for YaHuWaH today, since each one had been against his son and against his brother, so as to bring upon you a blessing today. Do what the Father says, and he'll bless you. Stick on the pathway. no matter what anybody else says. And it came to be on the next day that Moshe said to the people, You have sinned a great sin, and now I am going up to YaHuWaH, if I might atone for your sin. So he's a type of Messiah. He's going to go up and he's going to speak to YaHuWaH. Now he isn't the Messiah, but he was definitely a type of, and there are several types of Messiah throughout the scriptures, and I will certainly point those out as we study together. And Moshe returned to YaHuWaH and said, Oh, these people have sinned a great sin, and have made for themselves a mighty one of gold. And now, if you would forgive their sin, but if not, please blot me out of your book which you have written. You don't want that. And YaHuWaH said to Moshe, Whoever has sinned against me, I blot him out of my book. In other words, this is going to be a righteous venture. And now, go, lead the people to the place which I have spoken to you. See, my messenger goes before you. And in this day of my visitation, in the day of my visitation, I shall visit their sin upon them. And YaHuWaH plagued the people because they made the calf which Aharon had made. So sin has, living in sin has repercussions, okay? And a plague would be one of those repercussions at this point. And things that happen to you, corrections that you get from the Father when you're sinning and making mistakes, those kind of things happen to the people that he chastises because he loves. So we put ourselves in that position because we want to be conditioned to be the Father's children. We want to be good children. We want to be good husbands, wives, fathers, mothers, so on and so forth. Brothers, right? Brothers, sisters. So we put ourselves in that position, and the Father chastises us, and he refines us like the silver that I talked about in the first part of the Torah portion. Okay, so refined silver. We are the body of Messiah. Messiah is the Word. The Word is like refined silver. And we all go to it. It's all comparable. The Word, the Messiah, the refined silver, the body of Messiah, which is the group of people that trust and believe in Him through His Word. So there's that. And YaHuWaH spoke to Moshe, Come, go up from here, you and the people whom you have brought out of the land of Mitzrayim to the land which I swore to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The Father keeps His promises. He keeps His appointments. You should too. To Yaakov, saying, To your seed I give it. And I shall send my messenger before you, and I shall drive out the Canaanite, the Amorite, the Hittite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite, to a land flowing with milk and honey. For I do not go up in your midst, because you are a stiff-necked people, lest I consume you on the way. Get tired of your crap. And when the people heard this evil word, they mourned, and no one put on his ornaments. Oh, what happened? No one's going to dress up anymore? Yeah, probably not a good idea. Probably hit your knees at this point. And YaHuWaH said to Moshe, Say to the children of Israel, You are a stiff-necked people. Should I go up in your midst for one moment? I shall consume you. And now take off your ornaments, and I shall know what to do to you. So the children of Israel took off their ornaments at Mount Horeb. And Moshe took his tent and pitched it outside the camp, far from the camp, and called it the tent of appointment. And it came to be that everyone who sought YaHuWaH went out to the tent of appointment, which was outside the camp. He wasn't living amongst them, per se, at all. Yeah. And it came to be, whenever Moshe went out of the tent, that all the people rose, and each man stood at his tent door and watched Moshe until he entered the tent. And it came to be, when Moshe entered the tent, that the column of cloud descended and stood at the door of the tent, and he spoke with Moshe. The Father spoke with Moshe. And all the people saw the column of cloud standing in the tent at the tent door, and all the people rose and bowed themselves. There you go. Each one at the door of his tent. Thus YaHuWaH spoke to Moshe face to face, panim panim, as a man speaks to his friend. That's amazing. And he would return to the camp, But his servant Yahushua, son of Nun, a young man, did not leave the tent of meeting. He stayed there the whole time. Interesting. And Moshe said to Yahuwah, see, you are saying to me, bring up this people, but you have not made known to me whom you would send with me, though you have said, I know you by name, and you have also found favor in my eyes. He talked about a messenger. And now, please, if I have found favor in your eyes, please show me your way. Show me your way. And let me know you, so that I find favor in your eyes and consider that this nation is your people. And please consider that this nation is your people. Not please, but it says and. I like to read it correctly. I don't like to mess up any of the words if I can help it. And he said, my presence does go, and I shall give you rest. And he said to him, if your presence is not going, do not lead us up from here. For how then shall it be known that I found favor in your eyes, I and your people, except you go with us? Then we shall be distinguished, I and your people, from all the people who are on the face of the earth. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, even this word you have spoken I shall do, for you have found favor in my eyes. I know you by name. In other words, he knows him by name, physical name, verbalized name. He knows him by his reputation and who he is. Then he said, please show me your esteem. And he said, I shall cause all my goodness to pass before you, and I shall proclaim the name of YaHuWaH before you, and I shall favor whom I favor, and I shall have compassion on whom I have compassion. But he said, you are unable to see my face, for no man does see me and live. And Yahuwah said, see, there is a place with me, and you shall stand on the rock, and it shall be, while my esteem passes by, that I shall put you in the cleft of the rock and cover you with my hand while I pass by. Then I shall take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen. Chapter 34. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, cut 2 tablets of stone like the first ones, and I shall write on these tablets the words that were on the first tablets which you broke. And be ready in the morning. Then you shall come up in the morning to Mount Sinai and present yourself to me there on the top of the mountain. And let no man come up with you. And let no man be seen in all the mountain. And let not even the flock or the herd feed in front of the mountain. And he cut 2 tablets of stone like the first ones. Then Moshe rose early in the morning and went up Mount Sinai as Yahuwah had commanded him. And he took 2 tablets of stone in his hand. And Yahuwah came down in the cloud and stood with him there and proclaimed the name YaHuWaH. And Yahuwah passed before him and proclaimed YaHuWaH, YaHuWaH, and El, compassionate and showing favor, patient and great in loving commitment and truths, watching over loving commitment for thousands, forgiving crookedness and transgression and sin, forgiveness of sin in the Torah. That's where the concept comes from. But by no means leaving unpunished, visiting the crookedness of the fathers upon the children and the children's children to the 3rd and 4th generation. And Moshe hurried and bowed himself towards the earth and did obeisance, and said, if now I have found favor in your eyes, O Yahuwah, I pray, let Yahuwah go in our midst, even though we are a stiff-necked people, and forgive our crookedness and our sin, and take us as your inheritance. And he said, see, I am making a covenant before all your people. I am going to do wonders, such as have been not done in all of the earth, nor in any nation, and all the people among whom you are, shall see the work of Yahuwah. For what I am doing with you is awesome. Guard what I command you today. Guard the commandments. See, I am driving out from before you the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Guard yourself, lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land where you are going, lest it be a snare in your midst. But instead of doing that, break down their slaughter places, smash their pillars, and cut down their asherim. Asherim, those were like little evergreen trees. Hint, hint. For you, do not bow yourselves to another mighty one. For Yahuwah, whose name is jealous, is a jealous El. So Yahuwah is saying he doesn't like those things. And he's saying that don't bow. Doing that is bowing yourself to another Elohim, because it's certainly not worship of the Father. Lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they whore after their mighty ones, and slaughter to their mighty ones, and one of them invites you, and you eat of his slaughterings, because the good hardly ever rubs off on the bad. So watch out who you're walking with, because two cannot walk together lest they be agreed. Okay? And you take his daughter for your sons, and his daughters whore after their mighty ones, and make your sons whore after their mighty ones. Do not make a molded mighty one for yourselves. Guard the festival of matzah. In other words, keep or guard the festival of unleavened bread. And this is starts the day after Passover. Okay? We're going to go over that for sure, because Passover's coming up. For 7 days you eat unleavened bread. What's that unleavened bread? That's flat bread, basically. It's bread that hasn't been risen by yeast. And the yeast, or the leavening, is what makes it puff up. So it's representative of sin in our body. So eating this unleavened bread is a representative of going sinless for this period of time. And you should also do self-introspection and try to clean out too, right? For 7 days you eat unleavened bread, as I commanded you in the appointed time of the new moon of Abib. Because in the new moon of Abib, in the month of Abib, you came out from Mitzrayim on the Passover. Everyone opening the womb is mine. Every male firstborn among your livestock, whether a bull or a sheep. But the firstborn of a donkey, ransom with a lamb. And if you do not ransom, then you shall break his neck. Then he's going to die. Every firstborn of your sons you shall ransom, and they shall not appear before me empty-handed. 6 days you work, but on the 7th day you rest. In plowing time and in harvest you rest, no matter what. And perform the festival of Shabuot. Okay, Shabuot. Well, we're talking about Shabuot right now. Talking about the giving of the Torah. This is the time that it happened. Okay. Also the giving of the Ruach HaKodesh. Later on, when Messiah would ascend into the heavens 10 days after that, the disciples, or the taught ones, were given the Ruach, the Comforter. Okay, the teacher of wisdom. And perform the festival of Shabuot for yourself, of the first fruits of wheat harvest, and the festival of ingathering at the turn of the year. The festival of ingathering at the turn of the year. Okay, so there is a 7-month High Holy Day cycle, and the end of the year is the end of the High Holy Day cycle, and it's talking about the Feast of Tabernacles. And that is another time that we gather, and we get together, we celebrate, we pray, and all those good things. It's a good time. It's also one of the marks, or the appointed time of Yahuwah, to prove that you are his. Because if you do these things, then you are his. All right? So 3 times in the year, all your men are to appear before the Master Yahuwah, the Elohim of Yisrael. So 3 of these specifically, you absolutely have to appear before him. You have to assemble. Okay? For I dispossess nations before you, and shall enlarge your borders, and shall and let no one covet your land when you go up to appear before Yahuwah, your Elohim, 3 times in the year. In other words, you're not going to get robbed while you're gone, if you're keeping the Torah. Do not slay the blood of my slaughterings with leaven. Do not let the slaughterings of the festival of Pesach remain until morning. There is rules for Passover. The Passover lamb is to be eaten before the morning comes. Okay, and what's not eaten is to be burned up with fire. We'll talk about that soon. Bring the first of the first fruits of your land to the house of Yahuwah your Elohim. Do not cook a goat in its mother's milk. Now, I do not understand how that would be not eating a cheeseburger. But I am not making any fun of anyone who doesn't think that they should eat a cheeseburger because of this. Meat and milk. Okay? So don't make fun of people. It's ignorant. All right? It's based on ignorance. Making fun of people. But yet, I would say that do not cook a goat in its mother's milk. In my opinion, and that's all that it is it may well mean a baby goat that's still nursing. It's probably not fit for being used for certain things. Also, that's pretty much what I see. There's another thing that I see, but we'll talk about it another time. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, write these words, for according to the mouth of these words, I have made a covenant with you and with Israel. So the Torah is a covenant between you and the Father. Me, you, and the Father. Okay? And he was there with Yahuwah 40 days and 40 nights. And he did not eat bread and did not drink water. And he wrote on the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 words. 10 words, you call them 10 commandments. And it came to be, when Moshe came down from Mount Sinai, while the 2 tablets of the witness were in Moshe's hands, when he came down from the mountain, that Moshe did not know that the skin of his face shone, since he had spoken to him. And Aaron and all the children of Israel looked at Moshe and saw the skin of his face, that it shone. It was shiny. Okay, really shiny. And they were afraid to come near him. But Moshe called out to them, and Aaron and all the rulers of the congregation returned to him, and Moshe spoke to them. And afterwards all the children of Israel came near, and he commanded them all that Yahuwah had spoken with him on Mount Sinai. All the commandments. Read them out to him. And when Moshe ended speaking with them, he put a veil on his face. But whenever Moshe went in before Yahuwah to speak with him, he would remove the veil until he came out. And when he came out, he spoke to the children of Israel what he had been commanded. And the children of Israel would see the face of Moshe and the skin of Moshe's face, and Moshe would put the veil on his face again until he went in to speak with him. And that is the end of the Torah portion of the Torah. Okay? And so what we see here is we see the commandments given twice. Interesting. Messiah came down here, and he's going to return. Moshe went up the mountain, came back down, went back up, came back down. Okay. We got to read about the golden calf earlier, and how fickle people are, and how they'll turn on the Father in a heartbeat, which is a very bad thing to do. So we've had a pretty good reading so far. I'm going to come back, and I'm going to read out of the book of Kings here shortly. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I wanted to make sure that I pointed out the SabbathS that the Father was talking about here. Okay, he was talking about all his Sabbaths, the 7 of them. But he mentioned the Sabbath day. He has mentioned the festival of unleavened bread, or matzah. He mentioned Shabuot, which is the giving of the Torah and the giving of the Ruach HaKodesh. Not the same year, obviously, many years apart. But also he talked about the Feast of Tabernacles, okay, or the Feast of the Ingathering, which we do at the end of the High Holy Day season in the 7th month, because it's a 7-month cycle. Okay? All right, so I'll come back here in a little bit. All right, shalom.